lovely to meet you guys. Congratulations on a brilliant title and a fantastic film.
Oh, thank you. Oh, you like the title?
Yeah.
Cool. It's controversial. You see the title. We've been talking about this. Yeah.
First question, which is probably the most striking for our point of view, is how did 3 Irish filmmakers come to a story about Middle America?
Just, I suppose the book is set there, and so Robbie, Nick, and myself all loved the book. In fact, I can remember Robbie was shooting in Brazil, and he sent me an email where he'd enlarged the type to like that size, and it just said, "Do this book, make this book." I think it was, which is great, And already by the time he landed, he'd sent me pictures of people to play Mr. Crowley, and he was going to it all. So yeah, we all loved it. Didn't know if we'd be able to achieve it. Irish Film Board were brilliant at supporting it because it's not exactly set in Cork, it's Minnesota, and yeah, Nick had made a short film with Max in it, so that was our first name out of the hat for John, and then we thought, well, we're filmmakers more than big time producers, so let's go and make a test in America that we can use as a financing tool, and will also get us to see how you shoot in America like that. And we found it was actually very easy to shoot it because it's so remote. You're kind of left alone and do what you want to do, And so that was great, And we met Max for the first time, and yeah, so it was cool.
Brilliant. So John Cleaver is a very interesting character. How do you get in the head of somebody like that?
Painfully.
Yeah. I think the process for me was just like, make yourself feel terrible. That's it's not quite all of it, but yeah, just I think reading the book and reading the script and talking through with Chris Lloyd as well. You just kind of, it evolves.
Because it's a very interesting thing if you're playing a sociopath. Sure. There's like a lack of emotion, but then to give across the idea of being upset, like it's kind of a fine line, but you do it so well.
Cheers, thank you.
Yeah, excellent. And you have quite an interesting background. So you played very different characters, like cheeky kids, so now you've evolved into murderous teens. And what would be another step? What would be your next thing that you'd love to move on to?
Abe Lincoln.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. Just something interesting and perhaps equally like out there.
Yeah,
challenging.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And yeah, just how did you get into acting? Like, obviously at a very early age.
I got out my telescope and I looked at the stars, and my fortune was there. No, it just happenstance. Where the Wild Things Are kind of just fell into my lap, and then it's a really weird world.
How did that come about? How did Spike meet your...
Well, my dad's a photographer, and he was taking pictures of like a local Portland director for a magazine, and she needed 8 or 9-year-old kids for a music video, and knew from his photos that he had an 8 or 9-year-old kid, or it was probably 7 or something. So did a music video and got paid with a turtleneck and a piece of pizza, and then kind of my name got passed around as they were casting Where the Wild Things Are. There's kind of just a call for all the friends and friends of friends and friends of friends to throw names around, and mine got thrown around, and yeah.
Cool. Wow, that's good.
And what would be the difference between working on something a little bit more low key and doing something quite big and green screen?
Well, that was like a large part of the appeal for this project is like I know these people. I mean, they've been trying to make the film for 6 years now, and so I met them when I was 13 or so. Yeah. And you
stuck to us like Velcro.
Yeah. And so it's.
How long was the shoot, say, on Where the Wild Things Are then?
Where the Wild Things Are was 4 months in Australia, and then a year and a half later, we did a reshoot for, I don't know, upwards of a few weeks.
And our whole shoot was a few weeks.
And our whole shoot was a few weeks. So I think it's just a lot. And we were talking about this earlier. It's like you get to do it on your own terms, ultimately.
We had no boss over us. Yeah. We're in Minnesota, and we can do whatever we want with the film. So one advantage of being so low budget is that the finances were pretty much the Irish Film Board and Quickfire in the UK, and they were it's great that they were so confident in us, but they kind of, and also we're very remote, like we're 100 miles from the Canadian border. They didn't pop over to see how we're getting on. It's like a bit cold for that.
Sure.
So,
And speaking of the weather, was it difficult to film? And then it did look like a pretty fierce amount of snow.
I mean, it's a cold, snowy place, but ultimately, like you're there, so you just make it happen.
So average is -20, but you just wrap up warmly. And actually, I was saying earlier as well, like that you get a hell of a lot more sunshine than we get, you know.
Yeah.
So that's always, and also the light bounces off the snow, so it's very bright, you know. Yeah, there are difficulties, but it didn't slow us down that much, really. No, I think
so.
Yeah, you just keep going with it. Though we've kind of been joking a lot about it at the time. The Revenant was making a big song and dance about how cold they were, you know, and we were like, huh. Well, we had like, you know, their hot water bottle budget to make our whole film, so you know, it's just you just get on with it. And you watch the locals. I mean, they're all in jeans and big sweaters, and they just get on with it, you know. And the funny was, you meet some of the old lads in the bar, and they've got their V8 like truck outside, you know, their pickups. And the engine's running, and they might be in the bar all day for 8 hours, but they leave the engine running the whole time in case it freezes, you know. And like Jesus, you know.
So cheap.
And also it's so cheap fuel, yeah, you know. So it's a different way of life. It's funny.
Like, how would you kind of delve into those characters or develop them? I'm sure they were pretty laid out from the book, but
which ones in particular do you mean? Just in general?
Yourself and for
yeah,
Christopher's, yeah.
Well,
Well, we had the book as a guide.
The
great
book and then the
reference material.
scripts.
And the script, yeah.
What was great about Christopher was because he has a history of playing very odd characters, he had no fear of going to those places.
Yeah.
And what he liked about this was it's a hell of a lot more subtle, say, than Uncle Fester, you know, or what's the villain in Roger Rabbit, you know, that he played. But what the advantage for me is that even if we're doing a shot, say, from John's window and we see Crowley in the distance, is that Chris is an actor that's almost like a silent movie star where he knows how to use his whole body, which is why he wants the gym, because he's always been very physical. So he can bring a subtlety to that maybe another actor who's more about voice or about face wouldn't. And so Chris was always thinking like that, you know, about it. And that was, so like the whole, if you think about it, we're I can't say that because I'm giving it away. But some of the more difficult physical scenes, we've got a 7 or 8 year old man doing them, but he doesn't mind because he knows he needs to do those things because that's the physicality that he likes to bring, you know. So that was fantastic, you know. It was good.
And definitely, there's like a nostalgia factor there from the town, and there's the sense where it's so vintage looking, and the choice of shooting on 16mm, and then like that's very timely because a lot of, you know, towns like that feel like they've been left behind, which is probably why America is where it is. So,
well, with the whole election, definitely, you know, I was thinking back to our days in Minnesota. I think actually Minnesota went for Clinton, I think, because they're very Scandinavian there, but you could certainly get a sense of, you know, you could hear the conversations in the bars, and there was a lot of low anger, because even probably in Minnesota, it's probably Virginia probably went Trump, if you think about it. You know, that sort of area. Virginia, the town, that is not the state. And it is overlooked. And also, Robbie, me and Nick, we scouted, like, you know, I remember the famous one, the election, Ohio, we scouted all there, and we went into Pennsylvania and West Virginia, and that's the heart of it. And that is like industrial devastation, you know, there's nothing left there. And you do realise, it's why they call it the flyover states. It has been ignored, you know. So it's quite fascinating. We've, to be honest, found the people pretty much, they were lovely, you know, they were great help, you know. And the Flamers Bar, we if we wanted a camera platform, you know, we'd go in there playing pool, and I can't remember his name, the boss, but his second name is Flamers, but he'd hear Flamer, Joe or whatever, he'd go, if you want to use my pickup as a camera truck, you know, so we'd use his massive big Ford 150 or whatever they call them.
Totally, and the town is so small and so like just aesthetically perfect already.
So we could close the main street, do anything we liked. It was great, you know, so.
Thank you guys so much for chatting to us.
Cheers.
I'm sure it's going to do really well. Anyway, but well done. Congratulations.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.